As the guitarist for the band Pop Evil, Anthony Greve has played with some of the legends of hard rock. But after years on the road, Tony wanted out. He needed some help to sort out his feelings. So he and his brother consulted a Ouija board.
In one sense, there's an emotional high about that. You're like, wow, this is the stuff that I dreamed of doing, and I'm doing it. I'm getting to live it.
As the lead guitarist for the hard rock band Pop Evil, Anthony Greve had everything he thought he wanted. When the high of top 10 hits, fame, drugs, and women finally wore off, Anthony came up empty, and he didn't know where to look for meaning. In Delivered from Evil, Anthony shares where he found his true identity, as well as satisfaction that outlasts the high of his former lifestyle.
Anthony Greve joins us now via Skype. Hi, Tony. Welcome to the program.
So great to be on here. Thanks for having me.
When did you decide that you wanted your life to revolve around rock and roll?
Oh, man, I was 11 years old, and I saw a Roses video. I was in Turkey, and I saw this video, and I saw Slash playing for the first time, and I knew at that moment that's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
So how did you actually get involved with Pop Evil?
Say that again. How did I get involved with Pop Evil?
Uh-huh.
So Pop Evil was a local band out of Grand Rapids, Michigan, and we had a mutual friend. And at the time, they had been looking for a guitar player to come in and to do some session work and to play some live. And we just ended up clicking. And after just a little bit of me doing some studio work with them and a couple of shows with them, they pretty much offered me a full-time position, and they said, "You're our guy."
Well, you were opening shows for some big name bands. You were starting to do some shows yourself. You dreamed of being a rock and roll star. So what happened along the way that made you want out of that life?
You know, even the Bible says that sin is fun for a season. And so, you know, the drinking and the partying for a minute, you know, it was a blast. But it just kind of took over, and it just kind of began to consume who we were and who I was. You know, it really got to a point where I was just engulfed by alcoholism, women, drugs, the whole 9 yards. And really what began as fun just turned into this just spiral of darkness. And my life was just really beginning to spiral out of control.
Well, one night your bandmates went out while you opted to spend a quiet night inside your hotel room. Tell us what happened.
So the band all went out, and I stayed back, and I went up to the hotel room, and I decided I was going to take a bath and just relax for a minute, and you know, because it had been grueling on the road, and I was just exhausted. And in that bathtub, in that moment, I had an encounter with the Lord that changed my life. And you know, I didn't grow up in church, and so it was really just supernatural the way that the Lord had been working in my life, and to hear His voice the way that I did. And but I remember coming to the end of my rope and just saying, "God, why is nothing in my life working? I have everything, yet I'm completely miserable." And I just had this dialogue with God and this conversation with Him. And I just remember asking the Lord to forgive me, and just hearing the Lord say to me, "Son, I forgive you. Now I'm going to give you the one who's going to empower you." And the Spirit of God fell in that bathroom and literally broke and knocked every addiction off my life. And I have not been the same since.
Wow. Well, you felt like there were a lot of supernatural things going on. There was a point where you decided to consult a Ouija board. Tell us about that and what happened.
Yes, ma'am. And so in the process of me, you know, leaving Pop Evil, coming out of the music industry, you know, even though I had an encounter with God, I guess I hadn't been discipled, didn't really know what I was looking for, but there was a lot of supernatural activity going on in our home, and I didn't really know what was going on or to get to the bottom of it. Actually, I had contacted a church, and they really weren't able to offer me any help, and at least the church that I contacted at that time. And so I ran into a buddy who said, "Well, hey, my sister deals in the realm of spirits and mediums and consulting the dead and all that kind of stuff." He said, "Maybe she could help you out." So really, I was just looking to get some answers.
So what happened?
So in the midst of that, in the midst of that, she came over, she brought a Ouija board over, and I remember being skeptical to begin with, like I don't know if this thing is even real or going to work. And sure enough, it began to answer all my questions regarding things in my childhood, regarding things regarding family members, and so I was kind of surprised by that, but yet deep down something felt like it was off, like something was wrong.
Well, I know that there was a point at which your brother was involved in an experience with that. How did that impact you?
Yeah, well, that really was a turning point for me because I continued to operate with that board to really, and what I was doing was looking for answers and trying to figure out what was going on with this supernatural activity in our home, and it resulted in demonic possession. And so now when I saw that, when that happened and when that took place, I remember just being floored, because it was, it's one thing to have seen it in movies, and this was no exaggeration. I mean, you're talking contortions, the whole 9 yards. And so when I saw it, it floored me. But what was powerful was to see the power of God actually enter and take over the room, and to see my brother delivered, to see the power of God enter and just drive that thing completely out of him, which at that point I knew who the greater power was. And it sparked something in me to say, you know what, Jesus is the way, and I'm going to serve him for the rest of my life.
Well, your journey is quite an amazing one, and it's all documented here in your book, Delivered from Evil. Thanks, Anthony, so much for sharing your story with us. You can find out even more about Anthony in this brand new book, Delivered from Evil. It's in stores nationwide.